Imagine a future where human cloning has become a reality, not just in experimental labs, but as an integrated part of society. Clones are created for various purposes, from organ harvesting to performing tasks that are too dangerous or undesirable for others. In this world, the line between natural-born humans and clones becomes blurred, with clones possessing identical DNA to their originals and even undergoing conditioning to imitate human emotions and experiences. However, society and particularly the Christian community face a profound ethical dilemma. Are these clones truly human, bearing souls that make them spiritually valuable, or are they merely physical replicas, lacking the divine spark that defines true personhood? This dystopian society has largely accepted cloning as a technological achievement and an efficient way to meet specific human needs. Yet, Christians struggle with an unprecedented moral dilemma. Should clones be considered fully human before God, or are they merely soulless beings created by human intervention? Are these beings capable of genuine human experiences like love, hope, and spiritual connection, or are they limited to programmed behaviors and thoughts? This question touches on fundamental beliefs about creation, identity, and the unique place of humans within God's creation, forcing believers to reflect deeply on the boundaries between God's will and human innovation. Through this exploration, we will examine how clones challenge or reinforce the Christian understanding of life, humanity, and the concept of the soul. In this imagined future, science has progressed to the point where human cloning is a perfected process, creating exact genetic replicas of human beings. These clones are cultivated to look, act, and even think like natural humans, with emotions, memories, and programmed responses designed to mirror those of their originals. However, society soon faces an existential and ethical question. While these clones appear human, are they genuinely human? Do they possess souls? And if so, can these souls be considered as valuable as those of naturally conceived humans? The science behind cloning suggests that the process can replicate every biological aspect of a human body. However, theologians and philosophers debate whether the human soul, an immaterial essence, can also be duplicated. If a clone is identical to its human counterpart in thought and appearance, can it be said to share the same spiritual essence? For many, this question invokes the biblical account of creation in Genesis, where God breathes life into Adam, marking the unique connection between human life and divine intention. According to traditional Christian teaching, a soul is a unique gift from God, an aspect of human existence that science cannot duplicate or manipulate. This belief raises the question, if a clone is merely a biological construct, can it have the same depth of consciousness, purpose, or spiritual potential? On the other hand, if clones are capable of love, grief, joy, and empathy, do these traits indicate the presence of a soul? This question divides the scientific and religious communities, with scientists suggesting that clones are simply biological beings functioning without a spiritual core. Meanwhile, some theologians argue that human-like consciousness is a sign of God's presence, and if a clone demonstrates these qualities, it might indeed possess a soul. This perspective insists that the soul is not dependent solely on divine creation, but can be recognized by the individual's depth of character and experience. Yet, this possibility raises further questions about human identity and individuality. If clones possess souls, do they share the same spiritual purpose as their originals, or are they distinct entities with unique paths? Can a clone, despite its replicated DNA, develop personal autonomy and a relationship with God? These debates provoke Christians to rethink the nature of human identity, the function of the soul, and whether God's influence might extend into realms of human intervention previously considered solely natural. Without clear guidance on these matters, society's treatment of clones becomes varied and often contradictory. Some individuals see clones as tools, biological units created for functional purposes without moral or spiritual significance. In certain sectors, clones are deployed in high-risk roles or sacrificial tasks, under the assumption that, without a soul, they lack intrinsic value. For others, this approach raises ethical alarm. They argue that if clones possess any semblance of human traits, they deserve compassionate treatment. Christian voices within this debate emphasize the mystery of the soul, advocating for cautious respect toward these beings, while challenging society's inclination to reduce their worth based on uncertain spiritual assumptions. Ultimately, the science of cloning has expanded human potential, but raises questions about the essence of being human. For Christians, the possibility of creating life independent of divine will challenge core beliefs about creation, spiritual significance, and the mystery of the soul. Through these reflections, believers are called to consider whether life's sacredness can be preserved when technology steps into the role traditionally attributed to God. Traditional Christian doctrine holds that every person possesses a soul, a unique and immortal essence given by God. This belief in the inherent soul challenges the idea that life can be generated through human processes. The Bible speaks of a deeply personal creation, as reflected in Psalm 139, 13-14. "For you created my inmost being, you knit me together in my mother's womb." This verse emphasizes God's involvement in each person's formation, suggesting a creation process imbued with divine purpose. Clones, however, are not born, but rather engineered, raising the question, can a soul truly reside in something crafted by human rather than divine hands? Some Christian thinkers argue that because clones are not created by God's direct action, they lack the soul that defines human beings. According to this view, a soul cannot be replicated, as it is a singular divine gift. Clones, then, would exist as physical entities without the spiritual depth of their originals. This perspective reinforces the view that while clones may appear human and even mimic human behaviors, they are fundamentally distinct, lacking the unique divine relationship given to naturally created humans. Others, however, contend that the soul is not defined by the method of creation. They suggest that if a clone is capable of emotions, reason, and ethical decision-making, it may indeed possess a soul. This belief emphasizes that God's ability to grant a soul might not be limited by human actions. From this perspective, clones could be seen as spiritually significant beings, leading to a re-evaluation of what it means to be human. This perspective suggests that clones, if conscious and capable of forming relationships, might bear a unique soul and thus warrant the same respect and consideration as any other human being. This division creates a profound moral dilemma for Christians, forcing them to confront deep questions about identity, value, and the boundaries of divine will. If clones do have souls, then society and the Church have a moral obligation to treat them with dignity, respect, and compassion. If they lack souls, however, are they simply biological constructs, existing for utilitarian purposes? This uncertainty leads to intense debate, with some Christians asserting that even the potential for a soul demands humane treatment. The existence of clones also raises questions about the sanctity of life and the potential dangers of human overreach. Many Christians worry that cloning represents a form of playing God, challenging the sacred boundary of creation. From this perspective, cloning risks devaluing human life by reducing it to a process of biological engineering. For these believers, life is a mystery and a gift, qualities that cannot be recreated by human hands. This belief calls for a humble approach, recognizing the limitations of human knowledge and respecting the uniqueness of each life as an expression of divine intent. For Christians, the question of a cloned soul is not merely theoretical, but deeply spiritual. It challenges believers to balance scientific progress with faith in God's sovereignty, calling into question humanity's place in the creative process. This dilemma forces Christians to wrestle with the implications of cloning, not only for the clones themselves, but for their own understanding of what it means to be human and in relationship with God. As society moves forward with cloning for various uses, ethical concerns about the treatment and rights of clones come to the forefront. In many cases, clones are created to fulfill specific roles, often in dangerous or undesirable situations, leading to questions about their rights and their humanity. For Christians, the ethical responsibility to protect human dignity becomes central, regardless of clones' spiritual status. How should a society treat beings that bear human characteristics but may lack a spiritual core? Should clones be treated with the same rights as other human beings, or are they inherently different? One significant ethical issue is the instrumental use of clones. If society views clones as tools created for practical purposes, their treatment becomes a matter of convenience rather than compassion. Clones might be used for high-risk tasks, or even as spare parts for organ harvesting, under the assumption that they lack intrinsic value. This perspective stands in stark contrast to Christian ethics, which holds that every life, regardless of origin, deserves respect and humane treatment. If clones are perceived as lesser beings, society may ignore their physical and emotional well-being, leading to a dehumanizing treatment that contradicts the Christian call to protect the vulnerable. However, if clones do possess souls, the ethical stakes are even higher. For Christians, the presence of a soul signifies an inherent dignity that demands protection and respect. This belief would challenge society to re-evaluate its treatment of clones, advocating for their full recognition as members of the human family. Christians would be called to advocate for laws and policies that protect clones' rights, ensuring they are treated as individuals rather than commodities. This ethical perspective requires courage and a commitment to justice, as it stands against societal trends that prioritize utility over dignity. Even if clones are considered soulless, Christians may still argue for their humane treatment. The Bible teaches respect for all of God's creation, suggesting that compassion should extend to all beings, regardless of their spiritual status. This viewpoint reflects the belief that every living being, by virtue of its humanity, deserves fair treatment. For Christians, this means extending kindness and protection to clones, acknowledging their humanity and resisting the urge to exploit their unique status. In addition to societal ethics, the existence of clones raises questions about personal responsibility and the boundaries of compassion. Should Christians feel a moral obligation to extend love and empathy to beings that are considered soulless? Does the Bible's call to love others apply equally to all beings with human traits, regardless of their origin? These questions challenge Christians to reconsider their approach to ethics, prioritizing compassion and respect in a world that often seeks practical solutions over moral integrity. As society grapples with these issues, Christians are reminded of their role as advocates for justice and dignity. Regardless of clones' spiritual status, Christian ethics emphasize the importance of treating all beings with respect. This commitment to human dignity shapes how Christians view the issue of cloning, urging them to stand against dehumanizing practices and to promote humane conditions for all. This advocacy serves as a reminder that even in a world of technological advancement, ethical responsibility remains vital. The widespread acceptance of cloning introduces profound spiritual challenges for society, particularly for those who value the unique sanctity of human life. As cloning becomes routine, the view of life as sacred begins to diminish, replaced by a mechanistic perspective that views humans as replaceable. This cultural shift conflicts with the Christian belief in the divine nature of each individual, created uniquely in God's image. The belief that life can be manufactured risks devaluing human existence, leading to a society that treats life as a product rather than a gift. For Christians, this shift represents a spiritual crisis. The Bible teaches that each person is fearfully and wonderfully made. Psalm 139:14, a sentiment that emphasizes the intentionality and worth of each life. In a world of cloning, however, this sense of individuality may be lost, leading people to view themselves and others as easily replaceable. This loss of reverence for individual life affects societal relationships, diminishing respect for the uniqueness of each person. Christians counter this trend by advocating for the sacredness of life, insisting that every individual, whether cloned or naturally born, bears an irreplaceable value. As cloning becomes normalized, society's understanding of the soul begins to wane as people question whether the soul is a necessary component of life. For many, the soul becomes a symbolic concept, irrelevant to modern science. This shift poses a direct challenge to Christian teachings, which assert the eternal significance of the soul. As society grows indifferent to the soul's importance, the Church faces the task of reasserting its value, reminding people that the soul represents humanity's connection to God and the promise of eternal life. In response, Christians promote a renewed focus on the dignity of life, regardless of how that life originates. By emphasizing that each being bearing human form is worthy of respect, Christians challenge the dehumanizing trends of a society that views life as malleable. This commitment to dignity becomes a guiding principle for Christians, a reminder that science, despite its advancements, cannot replace the divine essence that gives life its true worth. In doing so, the Church becomes a voice for compassion, dignity, and respect in a world inclined toward utilitarian views of existence. The Church's position on cloning offers society a counter-narrative, urging people to reconsider the value of life and the role of science in shaping humanity. Christians advocate for the inherent worth of every life, challenging the notion that science can replicate or replace the divine. Through this stance, Christians remind society that true humanity is defined not by genetic makeup, but by a connection to the Creator. This belief reinforces the idea that even in a technologically advanced world, humanity's spiritual essence remains beyond the reach of scientific replication. As the Church faces the ethical and spiritual complexities of cloning, it reaffirms its commitment to upholding the value of each life. Christians declare that while science may replicate the body, it cannot replicate the soul, a divine gift that defines the true essence of humanity. This message serves as a reminder that humanity's worth lies not in its physical composition, but in its unique relationship with God, a truth that Christians uphold as central to their faith and their understanding of life. Reflecting on the ethics of human cloning and the nature of the soul, Christians find themselves grappling with questions about humanity, dignity, and the boundaries of divine will. Cloning, while a remarkable scientific achievement, represents a crossroads where ethical and spiritual concerns intersect. For Christians, the soul is a divine gift, one that cannot be replicated in a laboratory. This belief leads them to reject the notion that clones are soulless beings, advocating instead for a perspective that values the dignity and worth of all beings who bear human characteristics. The Church's response to cloning reaffirms the belief that human value transcends the method of one's creation, resting instead on the inherent worth granted by God. This commitment to human dignity challenges society's inclination to view life as a commodity, urging people to respect the sacredness of every individual. Christians argue that, even in a world where cloning is a reality, dignity and respect must be upheld, as each life bears the potential for divine purpose and significance. In the face of cloning's ethical implications, Christians assert that the soul is an irreplaceable aspect of human identity. They hold that only God can bestow a soul, and that every individual is a reflection of His image. This belief challenges society to consider the limitations of scientific advancement, recognizing that humanity's true essence cannot be replicated by human hands. For Christians, the ethical stance on cloning reflects a deep commitment to the sanctity of life and the uniqueness of each person. This perspective challenges society to honor the dignity of every being, whether naturally born or scientifically created. The Church's voice serves as a reminder that while technology may advance, the mystery of the soul remains a sacred gift beyond human reach. a truth that defines the essence of humanity in ways science alone cannot replicate.